said that we're going through our series on the names of God. And last week we kicked it off with, do you remember which one? El Roi, which is the God who sees. And today we're going to be looking at Jehovah Jireh, God will provide. I'd invite you to stand as I open up Scripture to Genesis chapter 22, and I'll read the first 14 verses. Genesis chapter 22, beginning at verse 1. Excuse me. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham?" "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the mountain of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering, and on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, "Abraham, father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. The reading of God's word. Father, I thank you for your word, and Lord, as we discuss it and as we study it today, I pray that we might be called into attention of your provisions, whatever they might be. So Father, we lift these things up to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Do you know where that Mount Moriah is today? Anybody? It's a Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And so that's the history there. But anyway, it's not a geography lesson. It's about God will provide. I've got a few photos I want to share with you. It's the mountain. And as you know, we love to ski. And this is Jeremy coming down the mountain. Right there. That's our youngest son. He had been working for a number of months in Texas. And one of the things that we were able to do this summer with Jeremy is Kim and I were able to go up to the mountain and go skiing or snowboarding. And so here he is. And, you know, he had been out of God's country anyway, for a number of months. There's not a lot of snow in Alaska or Texas. Will you please stand for the benediction? Just take it with us, saying the Lord will provide. The Lord will provide strength. As you can tell, I've succumbed to a cold this weekend. So here we are. If you see him up there, okay, he's hitting a jump. He's spinning in the jump. It continues on and on and on and on. And he comes in for a safe landing, and all is good. I'm going to run that one more time. And it goes really fast. Pretty good. I was impressed. How could he do that when he has been out of God's country for a period of time? They didn't have a lot of opportunity to snowboard in Texas, maybe some sandboarding or something like that. But why was he able to do that? Not watching his mom do it, but muscle memory. You know what muscle memory is? It's something that we do over and over and over and over, and it just becomes automatic. And so that was it was amazing because he has done it so much. He was able to get fresh on the snow and do this. It's a 720, so 2 full revolutions spinning backwards and all these other tricks, and it was pretty impressive. But let me ask you this question. Whoop. Oh, we have a problem today. I think our slides, we may not be able to use our slides today because they're not in the right order for whatever when they were put on. That's okay. They are in the right order. Page 1, page 2, page 3. Yeah, like I said, this is the day you're all supposed to be here. Anyway, so here we come to the question, what would you like to never forget? How to snowboard? Yeah. Ride a bike? What would you like to do to never forget? Never forget your keys? There we go. Amazing. We're all good? Okay. What would you like to never forget? Never forget your keys, your password numbers, multiple, your anniversary. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's kind of interesting because we had this discussion during the Inquirers class because we had a young couple in the Inquirers class, and the guy knew the month they were married, but he wasn't sure about the day. But God is gracious, and so is his wife. So, what would you like to never forget? How about this? God is not only always there, God will always provide. You know, when we say that in such a collective fashion that it's not, he will always provide that big fish that we can catch on the end of our line, or having all the time in the day to do everything we get done, and to get good grades on our tests and all those different things. But God will provide. You see, that's what we're going to study today, because God will provide. Since God sees the future as well as the past and present, he is able to anticipate and provide for whatever is needed. You know what it says there? Not whatever is wanted, but whatever is needed. Years ago, Kim and I, we used to do a lot of water skiing. I grew up on the water, and so when we first got married, one of the first things I had to do was teach her how to water ski. And we were skiing quite a bit, and she was on 2 skis. And I knew that she had the talent to ski on one. And I said, "Hun, just trust me. Today's your day." She goes, "Okay." We got up early in the morning. It was sunny with some friends. And I said, "Today's the day you're going to start on one ski." And she jumps in the water. And the first thing she says, "Bill, it's too cold. Give me the other ski." "No, please give me the other ski." And I said, "No. I know we have considered going to marriage counseling. But there is a happy ending to this story. So here's the deal. So she says, "No, Bill, it's too cold today. I just want another ski. I just want to have fun." I said, "No. Kim, you can do it. I know you can do it." Well, after saying no a few times, and the emotional level raised up a little bit, and pretty soon the water started to boil a little bit. One of us was in the water, one of us wasn't. And I said, "Okay, let me throw you the ski." And she goes, "I don't want it." And she got up there, she threw her the ski rope, and guess what happened? She got right up. And all was forgotten about. Was it because I was prophetic? No, that day I was just lucky. But God sees the future. I knew that Kim could do it. But I'm thinking, what would happen if she didn't get up? We probably wouldn't be here today. But anyway, God sees the future as well as the past and present. He is able to anticipate and provide what is needed. Say that together with me. Since God sees the future as well as the past and present, He is able to anticipate and provide for what is needed. It says sometime later, God tested Abraham. One of the things about a test is for our benefit. As we come back to our study a couple years ago, we studied James. Every time I think of James, I think of a certain person, Miss Sandman, in our congregation, because she says, Bill, the ladies are doing it, so we should do it from the pulpit. So we did. It was great. It was a great time together as we studied the book of James. But James chapter 1, verse 2, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds. And then it goes on, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And later on, perseverance brings us to completion. And so a testing of God is for our benefit, because He knows what you're going to be facing in the future. I've said this before. God has prepared you for today, but He's also preparing you for tomorrow. Maybe that's where we come into the God, Jehovah Jireh. Look at Abraham's report card. We've studied a little bit about this the last couple of weeks. God said, chapter 12, I will make you into a nation, many people. And later on, in verse 3, it says, I will curse those who curse you. Basically, He's saying, if anybody messes with you, Abraham, I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of you. Well, how did Abraham do? Well, he was worried because his wife was very attractive, and when they were going into a new land, he kind of thought that the powers to be would kill him and take his wife. And so what he said is he said, hey, Sarah, just tell everybody that you're my sister. That way they'll take care of me. Well, how did he do on that report card? He failed. Not too good. Even though God said, I will provide, trust me. Well, then that wasn't the only time. There's another time God tells him that He will give you a son and you have many offspring. Well, what happened then? Well, we read about that just a short bit ago. Abraham's response, him and Sarah devised a plan so that they would take the outcome into their own hands. And how did Abraham do on the testing? Not too good, did he? Doesn't that make us feel a little comfortable, a little better about ourselves? About how many times we have forgotten about God's promises, that God will provide, and what we have done is we've taken things into our own hands, and we've done it our own way. Or maybe sometimes we just didn't trust. Or maybe a combination of the two. You see, God's promises to Abraham in this story right here is that I will make you into a great nation. All the land you see, I'll give you your offspring. This went on and on and on. It was multiple times when He says, I'm going to do this. This is God. I am going to do this. Remember that question I started out with, and it says, what do you hope what is something you never want to forget? Might I say, God's promises to you? To me, it sounds like a good thing. But here it was, verse 1, as we started to read, or as I read earlier, it says, sometime later. A lot of things had happened. The first promise to Abraham that we record back in chapter 12, it was happened when he was 75 years old. And then 10 years later, he had the same promise again. And it went on and on and on. And then here it is. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him as a burnt offering on the mountain I tell you. And then it says, early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. What would have gone through your head? Perfect. Now, there are some times we would maybe think again, no, that's not true. You would say, no. This is so over the top. This is an example that is so out there in outer space. I'm glad God has never told me to do something like that, so I didn't have a test of my faith. There are many times that God has told me to do something. And there's sometimes I pass the test, but I have to admit there's sometimes I fail. What do you hope to never forget? Hopefully it's not just your password, but it's God's promises. And here's the deal. After he bound up his son, went to slay him, and all of a sudden God says, don't touch him. And what did verse 13 say? Read it with me. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horn. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed as a burnt offering instead of his son. I put the words in highlighted right there, which I thought is important to look at. It says, Abraham looked up. What was he doing before that? He was doing the task. He was getting everything ready. He'd probably been looking down for a long time because he just couldn't imagine the situation that he was in. I wonder what would have happened if he would have looked up earlier. I don't know. I'm surmising here a little bit. I'm reading some extra things into the passage, but I began to think, what would it have been? Would he come to actually that point of actually tying Isaac down to slay him, to sacrifice him? Or is it just he was so caught up in the situation, he forgot to look up to see how God was working in the situation? How many times do we're focused so much upon the challenge and we forget to look around to see where God might be working in our midst? I remember the comment by Henry Blackaby, and I said it this morning in our Sunday school class, in the Inquirer's class, that when you see God working in your midst, it's his opportunity to join him in what he's doing. Many times what we're doing is we're focusing so much upon what's going on and the challenges and the frustration and the anger and the anguish and all the other emotions that are going on in our life. And we forget about looking up and saying, okay, God, what an opportunity for you to work. How are you going to work this one? You know, I'm very glad that God promised to Abraham what was going to happen, that your son your offspring is going to be many. That was a promise of God. And then all of a sudden, Abraham followed and trusted. And then he passed the test. And the Lord, it says that Abraham looked up and God provided. In a quote by Stephen Cole, he says, a Christian life is a process of yielding all of myself that I know to all of God that I know. There's a book that was written out there by Mark Buchanan that says, your God is too small. And it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek book, but is your God too small to not carry you through the challenge that you're facing? Sometimes that challenge it may not be like Abraham's situation, but it might be pretty close. Because I know what some of the challenges some of you guys are facing. But here's the deal. Christian life is a process of yielding all of myself that I know to all of God that I know. As my self-knowledge grows, I discover areas of my life that I thought were given over to the Lord, but they were not. It's called a test. So God begins the process of pulling out from under us all the props that we lean on until He alone is left. Remember God's promises. God sees the future as well as the past and present. El Roi, the God who sees me, but also God will provide, Jehovah Jireh. It may not be exactly what you want, but it's exactly what God wants for us. Close a little simple little story. I don't know if I shared this with you before. My cousin on the day before he was going to get married, or he did get married, he went skydiving for the first time. Again, why would anybody want to jump out of a perfectly good flying airplane? Unbeknownst to me, I don't understand. But anyway, he went to skydiving school and training. And he said they got up on a platform that was kind of a makeshift of a strut of an aircraft that you would get out there on. It was almost exactly. And so, but they were on the ground, just maybe 6 inches up. They would stand out, they would come out through this door, they would grab the strut of the plane like this, and they would stand on this little platform. Now, they were getting ready for this because when you actually do it, you're going like 100 miles an hour and you're, I don't know, a couple thousand feet, 2,500 feet up above. And if I was in that situation, I don't think I would ever let go. Very scary. And he says, but what the class did is you got out on this facsimile, and all of a sudden the guy says, okay, ready? And he would tap him on the thigh, and they would have to jump back just like this. And he says they did this about 100 times that day. He says it was arduous, it was boring. But he says, I was very thankful, because when you're up there at 2,500 feet going 100 miles an hour, and all you're holding on to was that strut, and you're thinking, it's the first time I've hacked a chute, I hope I get it right. He says, you are simply terrified. He said it was the most terrifying thing he's ever done in his life. And he froze. But when that instructor tapped him on the thigh, and he got married the next day. So I guess he landed safely. That's Jehovah Jireh. The God will provide. Notice the name. It's not the God has provided, but it's God will provide. Father, I pray today that as we come together, not only share communion and worship together, but Lord, that we might share a bit more about the names of God and who you are. Father, one of the very difficult things in life is to give all our trust to you, even when we think we can do a good job at whatever the event that we're facing. And Father, there's times that we don't do well. When you tell us to do something, or you tell us to trust you, and we do our own thing. Forgive us. But Father, I pray that we might be able to develop such a character and such a confidence that we might recognize and realize that you will provide, whatever it might be. We might still go through struggles, but Father, in testing, that we have the faith of knowing that you've prepared us for today, and you're preparing us for tomorrow. We lift this up in your name.